What's up? Kevin DDR here. Can everyone hear me? Let's kill that. All right. Cool.
Oh, yeah. Got that too.
Oh, nice.
Another piece.
All right. I apologize in advance if I make any annoying noises or my voice gives out on me tonight. I've been sick for a bit. It's not been great. But all things considered, doing pretty well. So, let's get going with TGM1. I guess there's a lot to talk about, but I mean, first probably I took some notes as to places that definitely have things that I can talk about, and I'm sure I'll find more as we go through. But I think, honestly, the best thing to do first is to just watch the entire game from scratch. And it's only 10 minutes, so... correction. It's only 9 minutes and 19 seconds. So this video is from a couple years ago now, I think. It's,
About a year ago, right?
It's more than that. It's, let's find out. It's a pretty old score. Yeah, it's from July 2017, so just about 2 years ago now. Pretty nuts. Haven't improved my PB in TGM1 since then, and now watching this back, I'm like, okay, I definitely 100% need to improve that PB because it's garbage. So we can watch how garbage it is, or how not garbage it is. But either way, let's just watch it. And let me pop open chat here so that everybody can... Feel free to ask questions, of course, if you have any. I can't guarantee that I'll immediately be able to answer them, but I'll try. Let's go right back to the start.
I think I like TGM1 because it's like a pure puzzle game. There's not really any action element to it. I mean, there is, but not as much as TGM2 or 3.
So you'll see something that I did here, where I intentionally blocked off the stack about halfway up the playfield. I guess it would be in row 7. This is a technique that was basically new at the time, or not really new, but it hadn't been done that much. A player from Japan, Kashiwa, was the one who kind of popularized the technique because he got a bunch of good PBs using it. But the idea behind it is basically that normally when you're in the low gravity section of the game, clearing a Tetris is of course the best thing to do because every line clear basically makes you have to wait through the line clear animation again. So the line clear animation is not proportional to the number of lines that you clear in a clear. Otherwise, this game would be really boring. So instead,
Yeah,
you know,
those
clearing a
instantaneous
double
Tetris
means you
are
have to wait through
pretty
half as much of that. A triple means you have to wait through, you know, 1/3 as much. And a Tetris, of course,
Much as I
is
hate to
1/4,
say it, or
you know,
love
per
to
line
say it,
clear,
actually.
or level
I
game,
think we
rather.
might see Kashiwa take down the world record
So-
soon.
Kashiwa's strat, at the start of the game, you're in low gravity, which means that anytime you want
look
to
at
drop
that.
a piece...
The fucking 56-second section.
Oh my god, listening to my own voice makes me want to die.
I mean, it's crazy.
I'm gonna turn the volume of this way down. And
That's how you do it. You just purposely fuck up your stats.
Yeah, that's pretty much how you do it. Of course.
I mean, this.
So.
I can't really even overstate how revolutionary this is.
Yeah, and it was definitely revolutionary. So,
Technique that no one had ever thought of. I guess people just.
oh my god. Yeah, listening to my voice is just painful. So the idea is basically that normally when you clear a Tetris, which is what you want to do, it's the fastest thing because it means you have to wait through less line clear animations. But in the low gravity, where dropping a piece, of course, takes time, even though you stack high to avoid having to drop pieces further down until higher gravity, whenever you clear a Tetris with a clean playfield, the eyepiece has to be dropped all the way down. So what people had done in the past was cleared triples at the top of the stack instead, because it's a good compromise. You know, you're still getting a triple worth, you're still getting the benefit of clearing multiple lines at once, but you're not having to drop the piece that clears the line all the way down the playfield. And Kashua's strat is nice, because it basically sidesteps that. It means that you can clear Tetrises more than halfway up the playfield, which saves a few seconds over the course of 0 to 500. And it's a good technique. It's not too hard to do. And, at the time, I was really struggling to get any kind of TGM1 PB. So I started messing around with it. And within like a day or two of playing using the strat, I got this hot 4-second PB. And I mean, you can see my splits on the bottom right. My PB splits at the time. And those are honestly, I mean, I guess I'd say they're not that bad. Definitely the start of my PB at the time was pretty slow. 454 is like, unless you're like a really, really top level player, probably the best you can hope for in the second half of the game is like 4 minutes 30. Maybe if you're really lucky, like 4 minutes 28. And even then, I mean, that's pretty hard. And I think definitely if you're setting a target time for yourself, if you're going for something around sub 10, you really can't be expecting more than I think like a 4:30 in the second half. So this run was already good, with a 450 first half. And I knew there was a chance, of course, at a PB. But I thought it would require an absolutely insane second half. And I mean, clearly it was a good second half, because a 430 second half, of course, means that in 20G mode, you could get a sub 9. Because the whole game is basically just 2 second halves stacked back to back. Which is something I still haven't done. So, I mean, I think it's something I'm easily capable of at this point. But, I mean, you'll see, like, the second half is kind of clean, but there's still a lot of major mistakes. And, while the gameplay overall is pretty decent, I mean, once I go through all the things that went wrong and a couple of the things that went right, you'll see that, like, I actually lost an insane amount of time in the second half of this run. So while it was still good for me because of pretty quick locking pace, which I think is where most newer players will gain time, is just locking the pieces faster and not delaying. And of course, that only gets you so far. And I would venture to say that it gets you a little bit behind this run. Like, your locking pace, if you stack like shit and you're clearing lots of singles, you're probably not going to get much faster than this. In fact, I would say you probably won't even get to this point. From there to the world record pretty much just comes down to better stacking. As opposed to just, like, locking faster, like it kind of does in TGM3. Yeah, Berserk Pixel, I think it was mostly just considered not that viable because people, like, kind of slept on the fact that it actually does save, like, 4 or 5 seconds if executed really well. And it's also frustrating because sometimes in the process of trying to set it up, you could just torpedo your run. Especially if you're playing in the arcade at, like, 50 to 100 yen a credit. It's not nice to just torpedo your runs in the first section. Now, of course, this was played at my house a couple of years ago, back when I still lived in Seattle and had a bunch of arcade cabs in my room. Yeah, I mean, at this point, with the 736, I knew that the chance was there, but it was slim because, getting like a 716 would be 250s. So a 719 was definitely, or a 919, I didn't see coming at this point. I think a clean section where you end at roughly the same stack height as you started, I think like a 52 is like pretty solid. Like, that's really good. But obviously the best sections that people have had are like, 49s with starting and ending at the same stack height. Even 48s. So, I mean, there is that. But again, that requires you to be a real top level player. So, man, and I got level stop there too, which is unfortunate. But, I mean, still, I managed to pull a 425 second half out of my ass in this just, not really very good second half. And I think once we go through it, you'll see why I'm saying it's kind of abysmal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that there's just so many unnecessary single clears and like missed opportunities that, they don't stick out to you until you actually know what's possible in the game. So maybe I'm giving away the fact that I'm actually not that great of a TGM1 player, which I'll freely admit. But definitely I think now looking back at it, this run makes me want to play some more because I don't know why. I was pretty happy. Been quite a while at the time since I improved a PB. And it was nice. So, that's the run. Let's go through it and talk about the various things that, and I guess we'll just go from the start. And I'll stop at each of the moments that I think is worth talking about. And yeah, the arcade that's in that image, by the way, and on the image on the right here, the Tetris the Grandmaster time trial ranking is Pier 21 in Kodaira, near Tokyo. Well, in Tokyo, I should say. Kodaira City. It's about like a 30-ish minute train ride from Shinjuku. 30-40 minutes, depending on if you get the express or not. And it's an arcade that has a ton of TGM, and it's basically like TGM Mecca, for lack of a better word. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. Like, people have come from all over the world to go there to play TGM, because that's where the only monthly TGM tournament in the world is held. And that's always a good watch, by the way, so definitely check out their Twitch at Pure TGM. That's just twitch.tv/PIERTGM. They stream, well, I tweet about it as well when they do, but occasionally players will come in and stream on their own there, but also they have a monthly tournament. So, I guess let's go back, and you can see here, so this is the key to the Kashiwa strat, is laying this Z block across the right half of the playfield. Or rather in columns 8, 9, and 10. So ideally, the best way, I think, to set this up, there are multiple ways, but I think the easiest way to set this up is you basically set up this 3 wide at like whatever your desired height is. And now your desired height for the Kashiwa strat, you can make a hole in like, row 7 or 8 or 9 or, 6 or 5. Obviously, the higher up you go, the more of a time save you're going to get, in theory. Or rather, the better your maximal time save is going to be, because you're saving more frames on each eyepiece dropped. But, of course, if stacking higher causes you to slow down in any way, all of that time loss very quickly disappears. Or all of that time gain very quickly turns into time loss. So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend trying to do it at like 8 or 9 or 10. I think that's kind of crazy. Obviously, if you were a TAS, you would definitely want to do it at least that high. But, you know, we're not a TAS, so only 777 is a TAS. And he doesn't use this strat at all. He actually just clears triples at the start, even in his world record game, I believe. So, nonetheless, it's a pretty good strat, and it can save some time. So, you know, I don't know if I would recommend it for newer players. I think it's a bit more of a technique that, unless your time is already, like, well under 10 minutes, like maybe like 9:45, 9:30, around there and better, I would say it's probably worth trying it out. But I mean, that's not to say that you can't try it out, you know, from any skill level. So something to keep in mind anyway, but I just figured I'd point it out because, you know, it's something unique and people might think it was a mistake at the start of this run, but no, it's actually completely intentional. And I mean, you know, it's very easy to start hesitating. And see, I mean, I kind of ran into a tricky situation there where I had to clear a single that I might not have otherwise. Now, the thing is, it's kind of a fallacy to say that using this strat causes you to have to, like, play more carefully up at the top, because ideally, you're going to be playing way up at the top regardless of whether or not you use this strat. Ah, that was a bad play there, too. That was actually, I didn't even notice that the last time I was watching this video. Right here, the actual best play would have not been to do that. And I think I did that because I thought that I could fix this with a J. Skim a double with a J. What I should have done, and I mean, it turns out it didn't matter because I got the wrong blocks anyway, but the theoretical best thing to have done would have been to actually thrown that in columns 7, 8, and 9 in spawn orientation, and then tried to clear a triple. And in that case, well, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to torpedo the run anyway. But I suppose what I could have done, I mean, if I was really playing all out, I could have put the O in 2 and 3, or I could have put the O, like, up here in 7 and 8. I mean, both of those would be, of course, if you put it in 7 and 8, you know, it would negate the benefit of skimming a triple. You'd have to skim a double again later to avoid having to clear singles and stuff here. Yeah, just, oh my god, it was not good anyway. And you can see, I mean, I paid desperately for it. I mean, look at how much time I lost. Oh, I mean, again, like, I think that was even a bad play there. Right. Yeah, right there. So that was me either misdropping or just being dumb. What I should have done, and, you know, even hesitating like 20 frames or so would still have been worth it. What I should have done here, and it would have been an easier and less dangerous input, is to just initial rotate this and just drop it right here and clear a triple. And I mean, you could say, well, you wouldn't have known that the eye piece was coming out, so it would have been a dangerous move. But, I mean, you know, this is TGM1. You're going for a good time. Sometimes you just have to take risks like that. And, you know, hopefully you don't get yourself in this kind of situation that often. But, you know, beyond a certain point, like, you really don't have... You don't have any kind of a choice. You know, you have to do the thing that's faster. Because the records are, in fact, that good and do stuff like that. So, you know, it is what it is. All right. This was a good play, by the way. This is actually a really insane play right here. And I mean, this is a good example of keeping your stack height high. So, of course, you know, it's TGM1. So, to save time on dropping pieces, you know, there is no instant drop. So, we have to drop pieces manually. Which, of course, means we have to stack high in the low gravity parts of the game. And the like non-cosmic brain move here would have been to have just cleared a Tetris right here and dropped my stack, you know, another 4 rows down. Which means that on every placement from then on, I'm basically losing 4 frames. So that's literally every placement, you know. So in 10 pieces, that's already 2/3 of a second. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, the seconds add up. I mean, that's in 10 pieces, you know. The game is like, what, roughly 600 pieces dropped?
It's over 700.
Yeah, 700 pieces dropped. So, like, you know, something to consider. I mean, either way, the first half is a couple hundred. So, you know, that does cost you a lot of time. And, I mean, that's a small example. I mean, the difference when you have, you know, 8 or 9 height difference is, of course, way bigger. And that's why, at least to some extent, stacking quite far towards the top is important. So what I did here was actually really good. So, I mean, this is dangerous, but this is just an example of what you need to do. So I actually set up a Tetris at the top of the playfield and cleared it like that. And then a double. And I think it was pretty good. I mean, it ended up working out okay. Those doubles are not ideal, but I think keeping the stack height higher was definitely... And I mean, it's just garbage here. It rapidly went to shit again, but that's, you know, that's normal.
It's an ambitious prediction.
Yeah, it didn't happen, as it turns out.
Kashiwa was like, fuck this, I'm gonna keep banging away on death
Yep.
for the next 40 years.
That goes pretty well. So, I mean, I guess something I should talk about as well is at 200, the gravity curve in TGM1. TGM1 actually, like, the gravity starts out really slow, and then it gets faster and faster up to a point, and then it resets and slows down for, like, another 50 levels or so at level 200, and then it goes all the way up to 20G very rapidly, which is, of course, pieces falling instantly to the top of the stack. So, coming into level 200, the biggest source of time loss in the first half of the game, for many people, is being low stacked at 200. Because from like 100 to 200, it's not that big of a deal. But at 200, like, the gravity is literally 0. So you're losing a ton of frames, you know, just like at the very start of the game. So, you know, even clearing a Tetris into, you know, a Tetris is like, depending on the height of your stack, sometimes you might even want to, like, clear a single at the top of the, you know, at the top of the stack to avoid making your playfield so low that you're spending a ton of time dropping pieces. But, I mean, I came in pretty high up, and I still had the Kashiwa style thing going on here, which, of course, I need to fix at some point. Yeah, it's absolutely recommended for beginner players to stack as high as you're comfortable in low G. I mean, that's really not to say that it's ever not recommended to stack high. It's more just that, I mean, you have to watch back your runs, but as long as you don't feel like you're slowing down, like, as long as you don't think that you're having to make, like, bad decisions, you know, I would say just keep stacking up. But, you know, at the same time, you don't need to go way, way out of your way to get, like, you know, absolutely insane playing at, you know, 13 and up the entire 0 to 300. You know, you don't strictly need to do that. I mean, you can obviously still get insane times without doing that. But, you know, clearing Tetrises as early as you can when you don't need to, that kind of stuff, like, that will cost you lots and lots of time. So, yeah, it's definitely still recommended. So this run was pretty good because I was stacked fairly high. Now, see, that's the unfortunate part. And I mean, what I just did there, like, there's no way around it. You know, if you find yourself in that situation, doing overhangs and stuff is of course good in high gravity, but this isn't high gravity. So when this piece came out, that was like, okay, well, there's like literally nothing I can do. You know, I've just got to drop it somewhere. So I did. And, you know, then I dropped the T there. I mean, it's obviously an awful placement, but what are you going to do? You're not going to wait for the piece to drop.
Well, what that T placement does at least do is keep all the holes on the same row.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true. It could be worse, but, you know. Yeah, it was not a great placement, so. I tried to skim it down with a double, but didn't really go. Triple, that was good. Good skim there. I mean, trying to skim with doubles and triples is a really important part of getting good at TGM1, I would say. You know, and if you watch like the sub 9 videos, they all do tons of that. You know, because skimming with singles, even if you're trying to skim to set up a that was a bad play, actually. I think that was one of the ones I noted. Yeah. I mean, I don't really want to say bad because it actually wasn't that bad. But, so right here, what I should have done, well, maybe I should have put that on the right, but actually that wouldn't have been a good move because then I would have, like, blocked off my stack again. What I should have done here is initial counterclockwise rotated this L block into columns 8 and 9, or 9 and 10 here. Because that would mean that 9 and 10 have, you know, they're 4 high, right? Like 10 is 4 high, so whatever my next clear is, if I clear a Tetris here, it opens this up again. And it's a Tetris instead of like a double or triple, which is better for time attack, of course. Because again, we're trying to minimize the amount of total line clears, like the total individual line clear animations played. So that, I mean, I cleared a double there with it, you know, which is not bad. But that wasn't a good idea. How are you able to fill overhangs so easily without locking the piece in place too early? That's a good... I'm not even entirely sure what you mean by that. Because, I mean, usually when I do an overhang, I don't even lock until the piece is, like, already in place. Like I noted the last move that I did is usually a rotation that gets it into place. If it's a one that's not a rotation into place, then I do mess it up sometimes. You know, but I usually take it pretty conservatively because chances are if I'm in a situation where I'm doing an overhang, it's not ultra fast anyway. Yeah, I mean, if this was TGM2, you know, I could have sonic dropped and rotated the T. Oh, how are you able to fill low overhangs at low gravity? I don't. That's what I'm saying, is that basically at low gravity, like, more or less I don't do it. If there's really no other good option, like, really no good option, then sometimes I'll try and fill it. Or if it's in a tournament, like the Masters, I'll usually try and fill it just to play it safe. And, I mean, then you've just got to drop and, like, just tap down until the piece gets close and then wait. I mean, that's pretty much it. There's no way to go faster, which sucks. So, I mean, from 0 to 200, or really 0 to 100 and then 200 to 300, you really can't be doing overhangs. Like, you just, you know... And you'll see this in the top players, too, in like 777 and people, is when they're in that situation, they'll just throw the piece wherever and then try and, you know, skim it with a double or triple, or Tetris even, later. And that's just kind of how it is. I mean, you know, that's more or less the rule, is that in time attack, it's too dangerous. Really, it's just too slow, is what I should say, to set up overhangs. You know, I mean, if you're a newer player... Oh, no, there's no secret method. No, I mean, in TGM 2 and 3, you know, it's fine. But in lower gravity in TGM 1, no, there's nothing you can do. And that is a good point that I think definitely I'm glad you brought that up because that is a good point. Is that as general advice, from 0 to 300. I mean, from 100 to 200, it's less bad because the amount of time you're gonna waste is like under a second. So hopefully, hopefully that's not gonna hurt you too much. And if it keeps your stack much cleaner, then like that's okay. But definitely 0 to 100. I mean, it really, really costs you like a lot of time. So only in situations where you absolutely have to keep the stack safe, or you're playing way at the top of the screen and you have no other choice or something. But I mean, again, that goes back into what we were talking about, where if you're doing something because you're playing at the top of the screen that's slower, then like you're losing all that time gain anyway. So yeah, I mean, um these old Kevin DDR stream VODs are hard to watch. Okay, so there. That was actually a good placement. That was actually a pretty good placement, I'd say. Let's go back here. So, like, the naive move might be to throw... The naive move might be to throw this, like, right here, which is actually a decent move. Because then, if you get an S later on, you can throw it right here, and then skim a triple, which is, of course, really good. But that's asking a lot. That's asking for multiple, good things to happen. And you could just clear a single here and then skim a double on top of that. And that's not a bad move either. But that still involves, it's still really not that great. So the slightly better move that I actually did was to throw it there, blocking off the stack. And now, there are multiple pieces that I can skim out of this with, with a Z or a T. So that was a good play. And then let's see here. I had another note. Okay. That was a good overhang setup, but then I blew it. So, like... And, I mean, that was clearly just in the moment, me not thinking. So we go back here. This is a good overhang setup. That's a great placement because, then I can use an O block to fill this, ideally. And, I mean, there's a pretty nice stack over here, so I'm pretty safe to wait for a while for an O block. And then clear a Tetris or something. And we can just kind of ignore this bottom. I mean, it doesn't matter. We don't need to, like, go out of our way to clean that up or anything right now. Or really ever. I mean, if I played the rest of the game not clearing it, if it meant that I could keep playing faster, then whatever. It's not really a big deal. So, what do? Well, like a dumbass, I just throw the I block down the right, completely obliterating the overhang, and that was completely the wrong play. I mean, I got a triple, but I should have filled the overhang, because, I mean, now you can see it's like single, and I mean, I did get only a single and a triple, so it didn't go that wrong, but there was no reason to do either of those, so I could have just saved the second, basically. Again, another 2 singles. I mean, ugh. That's 2 seconds gone, basically. I mean, that's frustrating. And those are the kind of things that you might only realize. That good overhang setup again there, by the way. That was solid. And I'm playing pretty aggressively at this point because I know that the run is not really... That wasn't really... Now, actually, it's probably something better I could have done there. Let me see the stack again just to make sure I didn't misremember it. Nah, there wasn't anything better. Never mind. I mean, that was even that wasn't a great play. There was really no reason, like right here. I mean, clearly I was just, maybe I was nervous or maybe just not paying attention or something. But I absolutely should have just dropped this I vertically in column 6. Or, I mean, possibly column 7. But I would say... yeah, probably 7. Or sorry, 6. I think 7 would be... that might result in the stack getting nasty. So yeah, I should have just thrown it in 6 and then kept stacking, but I didn't. So there's a triple and there's a single. See, again, like I got the triple, which is decent, and then I took a single, and that just shouldn't have had to have happened. So again, I mean, that's more time lost, you know, and each of these mistakes, not even really mistakes, but just, you know, you think these placements are okay, and then it turns out they're actually garbage and they cost you a lot of time. Yeah, and I was pretty stoked with a 450 on that. And I mean, I was a little surprised because up to that point, I'd had some cleaner runs than that weren't even close. A good double skim there. That's a nice overhang setup. Oh, that was a good play. This is the kind of move that's like really important in high gravity in TGM1. That, like, I can't even really explain how to do anymore because I just do them completely, like, subconsciously. So, basically, I need to get this T-block over to here. And that is possible. So, let's watch this frame by frame. So, you can see... This is like a 30 FPS version of the video, isn't it? That's unfortunate.
Doesn't seem to be.
Oh, no, you're right. So, yeah. What I do is I basically initial rotate the piece counterclockwise. And then I tap it to here. I rotate the piece. And this is just a rotate. Because of the way the, like, wall kicks work, this is just me rotating the piece again. Counterclockwise. Nothing fancy here. It's not like a frame perfect thing or anything. It's just, it's in this spot. You know, and you can see it getting darker because the lock delay is like expiring. Sorry about that. Then I rotate. Then I slide the piece to the wall. And then rotate it back with B. And that pops it into place there. And if you did anything other than that, the piece would get stuck. You know, but that's clearly the best placement, like, by a lot. You know, if it was no gravity, you know, that might be the placement that you would make. But as it turns out, we can make the same placement in this situation. And it was good. So, you know, that's something that, like, when I see... I think a lot of, like, players who have GM, but it's like a slow GM, like 12 minutes or 13 minutes, you, like, basically never see them make those placements. And, you know... Part of the reason why their times are like 12 or 13 minutes is because when they get in that situation, they just throw the piece into an awful place, and then they end up having to clear like 4 singles as a result, you know, and that's a few seconds gone, just like right there. Whereas here we kept the stack clean, you know, and we've got an overhang for an L piece, which, I mean, that's fine. You know, it's the stack actually right now, like it might not look great, but it's really not that bad. Because there's a spot for an L or a J over, you know, an L or a J can go over here, you know, I guess, you know, a S or a Z, you know, you can do something over here. You can set up another overhang. There's space, you know, to do stuff, more or less. And I mean, there. So it worked out perfectly. And, you know, if you didn't know how to do that move, you just wouldn't have been able to keep the stack clean, period. So, that was a good play. Oh, there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about that I didn't. So, maybe I will go ahead and do that. Was that the level? Yeah. I guess it's right here. So this is actually... So this is a good question of like, what's the best placement to make with this tee when you're in this situation? And, you know, I mean, there's really no good option. Pretty much everything you can do here sucks. I mean, the problem is like if we put it here, rotated 90 degrees, you know, if we use a B rotate and put it like in, what is that, 7 and 8. The problem is that then 9 and 10 are just like this deep, massive well, which is not really the end of the world, but it's not great. You know, we could just 180 it and put it right here, and that's a quick placement. Also, I should say that this placement is not a very fast one. We could just 180 it and drop it here, which is pretty decent. And then the other option, as Blar is saying in chat, is to just, you know, throw it in the too wide well in 9 and 10. And I mean, that's what I did. Because then, I mean, I got unlucky with the next piece. I actually got pretty unlucky. If it had been like anything else, this might have worked out into a situation where I could have just skimmed this all away as a Tetris. But it didn't. But I still think it was the right placement to make. You know, and even though it's maybe not the most intuitive placement, or at least I wouldn't think it would be to some players, I think it turns out to be pretty good. I mean, you know, it went wrong, but I mean, that's TGM1. That's what you have to do. And actually, that's an interesting placement too, right there. You know, yeah, this is actually interesting that I did that. Because, like, really what I should have done, actually, if I was smart and not stupid, I would have just left this piece in spawn orientation, tapped twice to put it here, and then thrown it in, you know, 3, 4, and 5, like this. Because then I could have set up a sick overhang here that is, like, a little larger and almost certainly would have been fillable without any crazy shenanigans. Now, I mean, setting up that is actually not bad either. But that situation can go a little more wrong. I should have also mentioned that I think, unless I'm mistaken, another way to handle this would have been to rotate this the other direction. You know, hit B, initial rotate at B, move it over 1, and then clockwise rotate it again. Into this gap to here, kind of like a little mini T-spin, and then move it over and rotate. That's another way you could have done that. But I like the way I do it, so. And most importantly, it's kind of in my muscle memory now. And that's pretty important in TGM1 because, you know, you have so much time between pieces. Your placements better be pretty optimized because, you know, obviously the world record and, like, fast runs are going to make very good placements since there's lots of time to think about them. You know, you really can't brute force your way through. I mean, you certainly can up to, like, you know, under 10 minutes, even, in terms of just locking really quickly. But, you know, beyond that, your only time save left is really better stacking. And, if you haven't developed that technique well by that point, you're just going to hit a brick wall where you're just, like, completely unable to ever PB again. Because no matter what you do and no matter how well you lock, you're just clearing lots of singles and stuff, so. Ha! What's up, Kai? Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I feel like I'm stuck at this point. And I know why. It's because I'm basically just not making the right plays. And I mean, I also, like, never watch my own gameplay videos, which is definitely not a good thing. You know, which is something I'm hoping to get out of this little project, too, is, hopefully actually thinking about what I'm doing. Good double skim there. All right. There's something coming up again in not too many pieces, so. You know, and this is pretty textbook. I mean, keeping that too wide there is like, yeah, you could say it's not optimal, but it's nice because, you know, it usually keeps you in a good... do you mean in TGM2? I mean, the same thing applies in TGM2. And in TGM3, actually. I mean, it applies in all three games in terms of clearing singles. Because at the start of all three games, the line clear delay is, like, really long. Oh, I skipped right by the thing that I meant to talk about. Let's fix that. Yeah, that was stupid. I mean, this is just the kind of thing that, like, it's not like I really played badly. I just did something completely wrong. Like, and I mean, that's the kind of thing that you can get sloppy. You know, like, even if I was going to throw this piece just straight to the wall, first of all, there's no reason to do that. You know, it can go anywhere on the playfield. It's got full mobility. There's just no reason to even clear anything right here. But if I was going to clear something, I could have easily just B-rotated and cleared a double and then set up, you know, like a double skim for later. Or I could throw, you know, an I in column 10 and try and clear a Tetris and then a double or something like that, you know, which is stupid, but, like, it's fast, and that's really all that matters. So basically, this was just dumb, and it cost... This is, you know, really what I'm talking about. It's like a completely invisible time loss. Like, it's just a full second lost for, like, no reason at all. You know, and that's the kind of thing that, like, you see it, and you might not think about it, but a good overhang setup then. The fill was kind of not great. I mean, really... Really... I shouldn't have done that. That's a tough call, actually. I mean... See, the problem is, like... The problem is I could fill this with a Z. Like, I could fill this with a Z, but I also kind of need a Z here. I don't strictly need a Z, but I kind of need a Z, and I just had a J, so the odds of getting another J are, like, not that great, and an L would suck. An O, I just had an O. You know, I mean, that's really stretching, thinking about it that way, but I should have just executed the overhang fill faster, but instead I was slow. Probably just trying to make sure I didn't mess up the stack at this point. Yeah, I mean, I could have done that much faster. You know, and such is life. Oh, there was one other skim that we should go back and talk about. Yeah, there was no reason for me to skim a single here, actually. I mean, you could say that skimming the single, like, leaves the stack, you know, doing this leaves the stack in a pretty decent situation. But I think taking the double there, actually, and then clearing a double again later, or possibly even skimming a triple later, you know, or really just doing whatever, I think would have been better than taking the single. But again, I mean, I was nervous and it was pretty late. Well, the reason I didn't put it in 1 and 2 is because I was level stopped. 1 and 2 would be a good placement, of course. But I was already level stopped, and, you know, I mean, there's something to be said about... The problem, too, is I was level stopped, and then the I also was, like, not a great piece to have then either. So, you know, I went to clear it. No, I mean, it's weird. It's hard to notice that when you're not actually playing the run. I mean, it's also hard to notice it when you're playing. Nice little hesitation for no discernible reason. And I think by now, hopefully, you can understand why I'm like, I watch this back and I'm like, oh man, like, I gotta fix this. We gotta do something about this soon. So this was something, okay. Yeah, so I mean, here, there's definitely, this is like, there's a wealth of choices for this placement. There's seriously a lot of choices that we can make here. There's, let's see, well, I think the best choice is pretty obvious. We can set up an overhang that can be filled multiple ways by just holding down. Like, literally, you know, from this frame onwards, like, from locking this piece, we can just keep holding down, and the piece is gonna spawn and lock on the first frame possible. Oops. You know, and that would leave us with a nice overhang. And I don't know why I didn't do that. Because that would have been a really good placement. We could also do this and set up another overhang. Now, I mean, this is a mess because it means that column 6 is the highest column, which kind of restricts your mobility a little bit. It's just really not a good placement overall. And there's really no reason to do it when you could just do the spawn orientation. So what I ended up doing was this, setting up a T-spin on the right, which was good. Yeah, it was good because it let me Tetris, but I don't think that was even something I think I'd already decided on the placement before knowing next. So, I mean, it turns out it was good. Because, of course, now, you know, with this other placement, right, like, here, there's no way to get the eye over to there without doing a one-frame synchro, which is, like, an extremely dangerous frame-perfect move that I wouldn't recommend. I mean, I do them pretty frequently, but, you know, when they go wrong, it's catastrophic. So, this was a pretty decent placement. And apart from clearing the Tetris, what I could have done to really ensure stack stability here was just throw an eye vertically into column 5, which would have been a good placement too. And then, you know, eventually I'll get the T-spin. But this move worked out. So, you know, multiple choices, like I said. I mean, you can hear me say, why did I do that? And, yeah, there was no reason to do that whatsoever. Just made a dumb placement. I mean, that was maybe a bad move. Oh, sorry. Earlier. Yeah, I mean... like, yeah, I mean, if I was going for, like, you know, sub 9 GM or something, the, like, real cosmic brain move here would have been to just leave this in 5 and 6 and set up a eye overhang here, or, like, this just large wall of overhang, which can be filled in, like, a variety of ways eventually. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that move for anyone who's not extremely experienced, and I wouldn't even recommend it for myself, because it's pretty hard to fill. You know, when you set up these, like, big, ambiguous overhang zones like that, you really have to just be able to think, like, many placements ahead as to how you're going to fill it up. So, I mean, that's tricky, but theoretically, that probably would have been the best play. Or I could have put it one over and created, like, another T-spin overhang here. Yeah, I mean, that was, the 2 counterclockwise 6, 7, 8. That's a solid placement too. that's a solid placement too. That I think ultimately really the only problem with it is it kind of leaves you with this like nasty little like this zone of just getting stuff stuck in the stack. But if it works out, I mean, it's obviously great. I bought this game from actually a Japanese arcade distributor many years ago and bought a cabinet from someone who'd imported one locally. Back when it was still really cheap, and nowadays is not, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, these are good placements too. You know, and I mean, this last section was pretty solid. Good overhang, but see, I mean, that was just me being nervous. I think that's really all I could say there. Is that, you know, I set up the overhang correctly, but there was no reason, like, whatsoever. There was absolutely no reason to just like turn around and fill that with a single with the J. That was just stupid, honestly. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I would have easily been able to use the T and then the O. You know, I would have, as it turns out, if I'd done the right thing, it would have also worked out and would have saved, like, a little over a second. So, another second gone. And I mean, think about all the times in this run I've said that I lost, like, a second or two. And how it was still a 919. I mean, you know, that should hopefully give you some hope. You know, and I mean, that's how it is. TGM is just a game of, like, lots and lots of small time losses. I mean, that was dubious. That was dubious, but it was at the end of the game. And if you don't think you can, like, downstack at the end, you know, sometimes it really is just best to, like, if you know you have a line already set up to clear, it really is best to just, like, slam pieces down for the last 3 or 4 pieces and then clear. If you know you already have a line set up and you're, like, you know, under 10 away. Yo, sup, Irie B. Sup, K Price. Yeah, hope you guys are enjoying this. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good run. And I mean, you know, it's weird because, like, my previous PBs before this were all much cleaner. And then I hadn't... That's a good move. I'm going to sleep in relatively late tomorrow before class because it doesn't start until 1 p.m. It's 2:20 a.m. here right now. So, good thing we're almost wrapping up. Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good run. You know, it definitely... It was really sloppy. So, I mean, it shows that, you know, if you can have a run that it has, like, this many major problems in it and tons of singles, then, like, a decently clean run, like, even just a slightly cleaner run with the same locking pace would be, like, 9-10, you know? Not even, like, an outstanding run, but just a slightly cleaner run with similar, you know, accurate locking pace, which is definitely possible. Easily 9-15, possibly 9-10, you know, and then, of course, a very clean game with that kind of locking pace is, like, you know, sub 9. But that's, you know, that's just pure fantasy land for me, so, at least for right now. So, it's good to know, and it definitely, you know, if I had to put my current potential PB, like, if I were to just play an insane amount without getting any better, eventually I would stumble probably into a run that was, like, 9 minutes 12 or 9 minutes 13. You know, that's assuming I, like, did not get any better as a player. But that would require a lot of luck. And, you know, a few less stupid plays. Some of the overhangs and stuff that I cleared singles where I should have cleared doubles, or, you know, skimming a single when I could have skimmed a double or a triple, or, like, skimming a single or a double in a way that led to me having to clear, like, 3 or 4 singles, stuff like that. I mean, there really weren't any misdrops in this game. And, that's definitely good. You know, misdrops are, of course, painful. And I think, fundamentally, at a really high level, as daunting as it sounds, like, you basically shouldn't have any misdrops. Like, you basically, at most, will have, like, maybe 2 or 3 actual misdrops a game. You know, there were placements that were not good, but none of them were like, I meant to put a piece somewhere and I put it somewhere else. Which is what I really think of as a misdrop. They were just some bad placements that I didn't really have a good alternative, but every time I meant to put a piece somewhere, I put it there. And, that's something that you have to get to that point. I mean, there's no getting around it, because that saves a lot of time. Any misdrop is going to mess your stack up to the point where, for really good players, usually they can skim in a way that's like nice, like a double or a triple or something. And I mean, if you see the sub 9 guys, they can have a misdrop and then just like magically fix it, but it still costs them time. And for less experienced players, and especially for players who are like at 11 minutes or slower, or slower than that, like, it's like, oh, you misdropped? Okay, well, now the next 70 levels are like gonna be all singles because, your stack is now crappy and you have to find some way to fix it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's never a misdrop, it's an overhang. That's pretty much it, Mark, is, you have to view it that way to some extent. And in a way, it's like, if you're going to make a crappy, unrealistic placement, like, it's better to set up an unrealistic overhang than to, like, create a crappy hole, unless you already know you've got a good way to skim it as a double or triple. So, yeah, I mean, it was a decent run, and, I definitely, hopefully, I can improve it again. I mean, as you've seen, I've had in 20G, like, 4 minutes 21, 4 minutes 22 sections. So, or 4 minutes 22 second halves. And, I can see that. I can definitely see it. I can definitely see my PB getting down to, like, maybe 9:15 or better in the near future. So, yeah, I mean, I'll play and hopefully I'll get another run to talk about. I mean, this is, almost 2 years old now. And at the time, I don't think I'd been playing that much TGM1. I mean, I've never really liked TGM1 that much compared to TGM2. But, it is the version that the most people play, even still to this day in Japan. And of course, for newer players, it's like by far the best version, I think, in terms of developing as a player. And I mean, for everyone too, it's, it's a really good trading tool, because anything that costs you a little bit of time in TGM2 and TGM3 costs you like a lot of time in TGM1. So it's really easy to see where you're losing what would be a small amount of time in TGM2 and 3, and I think that's important, because, I mean, I think if you don't get that kind of background, as a player, you end up in a bad shape. So definitely, I think for anyone of all skill levels, playing TGM1 is always a good workout, so to speak. And the randomizer is a little more brutal than TGM2 as well. So, it's good in that sense too, in that you don't end up really getting away with making, single piece dependent placements and stuff like that as much. So you just kind of have to, be aware and handle that. I mean, it's not something I think about when I'm playing, really. But at the same time, the fact that you get away with them less, I think just over time eventually teaches you that, like, you can't rely on certain things. Or at least not in any one game, that's for sure. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions before I go, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much done here. Hopefully that was, hopefully people got something out of it. If anyone has any runs that they would like me to do commentary over, TGM 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. I'm definitely interested. I guess I would say let me know. You know, and hopefully I'll get around to it. There's still quite a few. There's still quite a few runs of mine and some other ones that, pending permission, I'd like to talk about, just because I think they're already, you know, they're runs that people might have watched many times, or runs that are like captured in decent quality, not like all in 480i with like crazy interlacing artifacts at 30 FPS. So, you know, there's still some that I'd like to do, and there's some that are just obviously insanely good runs that are worth talking about. But I'm definitely open to taking suggestions, and yeah, it should be fun. I will. It's pretty late, so I might not have time to make public to members the video from last week. But by tomorrow, I should have both that video and this video up for channel members. If you are not a member or don't know about that, it's like subscribing to a channel on Twitch. Except in this case, I'm providing additional perks such as early access to these tutorials. I'm not planning on doing all of them live. Some I think I'll probably put a little more editing effort into to just kind of make something, you know, concise. I mean, for my PBs, of course, I like doing a full like live watch back and all this stuff. But I think for other videos, people might get a little more out of it if it's not just me rambling on. So for the non-live videos, those will be uploaded immediately for access to members, and then 1 month later, they'll become public to everybody. And then once a month, I'm also planning on doing a Perfect Dark tutorial on one of the 60 stage/difficulty combos in the game of all the individual levels. A couple of them will be combined for levels that share like a lot between difficulties, like Pelagic 2, Special Agent, Perfect Agent, you know, will probably be combined. Speaking of, that's the one that I'm planning on doing as soon as possible. That's quite a lengthy video. Pelagic 2 Perfect Agent tutorial might be, it could be 2 hours long. I mean, it may be, it's going to be well over an hour, absolutely for sure minimum. And for that reason, I might start off with Special Agent, unless people really, really want to see Perfect Agent first, because Special Agent and Perfect Agent share a lot in common. There's just kind of some extra things you need to consider for Perfect Agent as well. So, you know, maybe in a way, actually, because it's probably more useful for more people, Special Agent might be what I go with first. But seeing as I just got a sick time on Perfect Agent, I'd like to talk about that, because my Perfect Agent run uses a strat that no one else has used in a completed run. Actually, 2 strats that are not used in any other completed runs. And, you know, I did talk about them at the time when I was going for the run. But I think it might be good to document it up in public. So, yeah, those will come soon. And, yeah, hopefully this was good. You know, definitely, like I said, I mean, don't mean to plug it too much, but you know, I don't ever want people to just give me money for no reason, you know, and I definitely felt like with Twitch there was some of that, because I felt bad if people gave me money and then I, like, you know, didn't do what they wanted, didn't play the games they wanted, or, you know, didn't stream for a while because I was busy or whatever. So I think with something like this, I think hopefully if you find the stuff that I'm doing valuable and worthwhile, it does take up a non-insignificant chunk of my free time here in Japan while I'm studying full-time, you know, and I can't get a job for another 5 months while I'm here. So, yeah, I need to wait until 6 months total to really start working. So, yeah, hopefully this, you know, if you want to see more, consider supporting. And if not, that's also fine too. I'll keep going. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, and peace out. No, I can't guarantee a time for the P2 tutorial yet, but I would say if you have to pick a time, it's probably going to be around like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Pacific, and it'll probably be next Saturday or Sunday. That's what I would say. 1 and a 2, you know, and I might even on my Twitter, like, do a vote. Or maybe I'll do like a members only poll or something on the YouTube channel, something like that. So, yeah, we'll think about it. And cool. Peace out. Have a good one.